The pain started during the appetizers. I was sitting at the corner of the table at Marino's Italian restaurant, celebrating my nephew's 8th birthday. My brother Marcus sat across from me, still wearing his hospital scrubs with his RN badge clipped to the pocket. Mom and Dad flanked the birthday boy, while Marcus's wife Jennifer fussed with the cake they'd brought. The tightness in my chest began as a dull pressure, like someone pressing their fist against my sternum. I set down my fork and took a slow breath, trying not to draw attention. The sensation spread up into my jaw. "Sarah, you okay?" Jennifer asked, noticing my hand pressed against my chest. "Just heartburn, I think," I managed. But my left arm had started tingling, a pins and needles sensation that made my fingers feel numb. Marcus glanced up from his phone. "You're fine. Probably just ate too fast." The pressure intensified. I could feel sweat beading on my forehead, despite the restaurant's air conditioning. My vision started to blur at the edges. "Marcus, I don't feel right," I said, my voice coming out weaker than intended. "Something's wrong." "You're fine. Stop being dramatic," he said, not even looking up this time. "You always do this at family events. Remember Thanksgiving when you thought you had food poisoning? It was gas." Mom nodded in agreement. "Sarah has always been sensitive. Probably just anxiety from work stress." I tried to stand, to excuse myself to the bathroom, but my legs wouldn't cooperate properly. I gripped the edge of the table, gasping for air. The tightness in my chest had become crushing pain, radiating down my left arm and up into my jaw. "I can't breathe," I gasped. The family kept eating. Dad cut another piece of garlic bread. Jennifer wiped sauce off my nephew's face. Marcus scrolled through his phone, probably checking his hospital's staff schedule. "You're hyperventilating," Marcus announced with the casual authority of his 6 years in cardiac care. "Paper bag breathing will fix it. You're just having a panic attack." I slumped forward, my head spinning. The pain in my chest was excruciating now, like an elephant sitting on my rib cage. My right hand was still clutching my chest, knuckles white. I could barely see through the gray fog, clouding my vision. "Should we call someone?" Jennifer asked, finally sounding concerned. "No," Marcus said firmly. "She's attention-seeking. If we make a big deal out of it, she'll just keep doing this. Trust me, I see this in the ER constantly. Panic attacks mimicking cardiac symptoms." Mom reached over and patted my hand. "Honey, just take some deep breaths. You're working yourself up." I tried to speak, to tell them this was different, that I'd never felt anything like this before. But my words came out slurred, garbled. The left side of my face felt strange, drooping. That's when I realized I was having a stroke. I was 34 years old, relatively healthy aside from high blood pressure I'd been managing with medication. But my mother's sister had died of a stroke at 42, my maternal grandmother at 51. The warning signs had been there in my genetics, in my family history that Marcus knew by heart from all those family medical discussions. I slid sideways out of my chair, my body no longer responding to my commands. I hit the floor hard, my head bouncing off the tile. I could hear my nephew crying, scared by his aunt collapsing. "Get up, Sarah." Dad's voice came from above me. "You're making a scene." I couldn't get up. My entire left side was paralyzed. I could feel drool running down my chin. The crushing chest pain continued, but now I also couldn't move half my body. Marcus appeared in my limited field of vision, squatting down beside me. His RN badge swung forward, catching the restaurant light. I tried to focus on it, on the proof that my brother was a medical professional, someone trained to recognize emergencies. "Come on," he said quietly, anger in his voice. "This is embarrassing. Get up." I tried to form words. They came out as incomprehensible sounds. "She's faking it," Marcus announced to the growing circle of concerned restaurant staff and diners. "My sister has a history of dramatic episodes. I'm a cardiac nurse. I know the difference between a real emergency and attention-seeking behavior." But one of the waiters, a middle-aged man named Tom, who'd served our family before, had already pulled out his phone. I could hear him speaking to a 911 dispatcher. "I don't care what her brother says," Tom was saying. "She's on the floor. Half her face is drooping, and she can't speak. Send an ambulance to Marino's on 5th Street." "Sir, you're overreacting," Marcus said, standing up. I'm telling you, as a registered nurse with 6 years in cardiac care, this is not. Then why isn't she getting up? Tom interrupted. Why can't she talk? The ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. I knew because I could see the restaurant's clock from where I lay on the floor. My family standing around me in a circle, still not calling for help themselves, trusting Marcus's professional judgment that I was fine. The paramedics rushed in with equipment. One of them, a woman with kind eyes, immediately started checking my vitals while asking rapid-fire questions. Facial droop, left side weakness, slurred speech, she reported to her partner. Pupils unequal, BP 190, over 115. We need to move now. I'm her brother. Marcus stepped forward. I'm an RN at Mercy General. She has a history of panic attacks. And sir, step back. The male paramedic said firmly. Your sister is having a stroke. We need to get her to the hospital immediately. Time is brain cells. I saw Marcus's face go pale. Jennifer covered her mouth. Mom started crying. They loaded me onto the stretcher. Through my blurred vision, I could see Tom the waiter talking to someone on his phone, gesturing at our table. Later I would learn. He was calling his manager to preserve the security footage. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and urgent voices. I heard phrases like stroke protocol and CVA and left side paralysis. Someone held my hand and kept telling me I was going to be okay, to hang on. At Mercy General, ironically Marcus's own hospital, they rushed me into emergency treatment. I caught fragments of conversation. Tissue plasminogen activator, CT scan, neurology consult. The crushing chest pain had subsided, but I still couldn't move my left side, couldn't speak clearly. Dr. Patricia Williams, the attending neurologist, appeared above me. Sarah, you've had an ischemic stroke. A clot blocked blood flow to your brain. We caught it early enough to administer clot-busting medication. You're going to spend time in our stroke unit. Time became meaningless. Hours passed in a haze of medications, tests and monitoring equipment beeping steadily. Gradually, sensation started returning to my left side. My speech improved from incomprehensible sounds to slurred words to almost normal sentences. It was day 3 when Dr. Williams came to my room with someone I didn't recognize, a tall woman in a business suit carrying a tablet. Sarah, this is Linda Morrison, our hospital administrator, Dr. Williams said. She needs to speak with you about the circumstances of your stroke. Linda sat down beside my bed, her expression serious. Sarah, the restaurant where you collapsed, Marino's contacted us. Their manager sent security footage from that night. We've reviewed it as part of a quality assurance investigation. She turned her tablet to show me. There I was, at the family dinner table, clearly in distress. I watched myself clutch my chest, saw my face contort in pain. I watched myself try to speak, saw the moment my face began to droop, and I watched my family keep eating. I watched Marcus, clearly visible, in his hospital scrubs with his RN badge, scroll through his phone, while I collapsed out of my chair. I watched him squat beside me, and tell the gathering crowd I was faking. Your brother is Marcus Bennett, correct? RN in our cardiac care unit. Linda asked. I nodded, my improved speech still not quite ready for complex conversations. Sarah, I need you to understand something. Your brother is a registered nurse. He has professional and legal obligations when witnessing a medical emergency, especially when that emergency involves textbook stroke symptoms. Linda's voice was gentle but firm. The footage shows him actively preventing bystanders from calling for help. He used his professional credentials to assure people you were not having a real emergency. She pulled up another screen. This is the timeline. You showed clear symptoms, starting at 7:43 p.m., facial drooping visible. By 7:46, you collapsed at 7:47. The waiter called 911. At 7:48, against your brother's explicit instructions not to, the ambulance arrived at 7:55. Linda looked at me directly. Sarah, your stroke occurred at approximately 7:44 p.m. Based on symptom onset, you received treatment at 8:23 p.m. That's a 39-minute delay. The first 20 minutes of that delay occurred while your brother, a cardiac care nurse trained to recognize stroke symptoms, insisted you were faking. Dr. Williams spoke up. Every minute during a stroke, 1.9 million neurons die. The delay caused by your brother's intervention likely resulted in more extensive brain damage than if help had been called immediately. What does this mean? I managed to ask. It means, Linda said carefully, that the hospital's ethics board is reviewing your brother's professional conduct. The state nursing board has been notified, and our legal team is assessing liability, both for Marcus personally and potentially for our hospital, since he was in uniform, representing us. Over the next week, as I slowly regained function through intensive rehabilitation, the investigation continued. Tom the waiter gave a statement. Other diners from that night were interviewed. The paramedics filed their reports, noting Marcus's attempts to downplay the emergency, even as they were loading me into the ambulance. Marcus came to visit on day 8. He stood in the doorway of my hospital room, no longer wearing his scrubs. His hands shook. They suspended me, he said quietly, pending the investigation. I looked at him, still struggling with partial paralysis in my left hand, still working with speech therapists to recover full articulation. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I genuinely thought you were having a panic attack. You've had them before, and the symptoms can look similar. And that's— I was clutching my chest. I said slowly, each word requiring effort. My face was drooping. I couldn't speak. You learned the FAST protocol in nursing school. Face, arms, speech time. You knew. I know, he whispered. I know. And I'm sorry. And I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe we've always treated you like you were being dramatic. Mom and Dad, they always said you exaggerated every little thing. And I guess I just believed it without questioning. You're a nurse, I said. You had a professional duty. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. They're probably going to revoke my license. The board meeting is in 2 weeks. The hospital won't take me back, even if I keep my license. And Sarah, God, you could have died. You could have had permanent brain damage. All because I assumed you were faking. I didn't have words of comfort for him. I was still processing my own trauma. The terror of being unable to move, unable to speak, while my family stood over me and did nothing. Dr. Williams appeared at the door. Sarah needs her rest. You should go. Marcus left. I later learned he was fired from Mercy General before the nursing board could even hold their hearing. The board suspended his license for 2 years and required him to complete ethics training and supervision before any potential reinstatement. My parents visited once, awkwardly, full of apologies that felt hollow. Jennifer brought my nephew, who was in therapy now, after witnessing his aunt collapse and watching the adults around him do nothing. I spent 6 weeks in rehabilitation, relearning how to write with my left hand, working to eliminate the last traces of slurred speech. Dr. Williams told me I was lucky. The quick administration of TPA had prevented massive permanent damage, but I would likely deal with some effects for the rest of my life. Tom the waiter came to visit during my final week. I hope I didn't overstep, he said, but I've seen enough in 30 years of restaurant work to know the difference between someone faking and someone dying. You saved my life, I told him. My brother's professional judgment almost killed me. Your common sense saved me. When I was finally discharged, the hospital legal team approached me about a potential lawsuit. Marcus's homeowner's insurance and professional liability insurance would likely cover damages. The hospital itself wanted to settle to avoid litigation. I thought about it for a long time. In the end, I didn't sue, but I did request that the security footage be used in nursing education programs as an example of how implicit bias and family dynamics can override professional training. I requested that Marcus's case be published in professional journals as a cautionary tale. Because the truth is, my brother almost killed me, not through malice, but through years of learned dismissiveness. My family had trained themselves to see me as dramatic, as attention-seeking, as someone whose pain wasn't real. And when a real emergency happened, those patterns were so deeply ingrained that even a trained medical professional couldn't see past them. I moved to a different city. 6 months later, after completing outpatient rehabilitation, I started fresh, with new doctors who didn't know my family, who took my symptoms seriously. I still have a slight weakness in my left hand. My speech is normal now, but I tire easily. Every 6 months, I go for follow-up scans to check for signs of another stroke. And I never saw my family again. Sometimes survival means walking away from the people who couldn't see you clearly enough to save your life.